My son Trevor raised a glass to my birthday and, smiling, called my life useless. The guests fell silent, and he simply left, leaving me humiliated. He did not know that I was going to give him a $2 million house. His words were like a knife, slicing through years of self-sacrifice. But that evening was not the end, it was the beginning. I decided that Trevor and his cold wife Lindsay would pay for their neglect. Revenge would not be hasty, it would be just. And I knew where to start. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The restaurant buzzed with the clink of glasses and forced laughter, but the air turned heavy the moment Trevor raised his glass. His words, calling my life wasted, still hung like smoke, choking the room. I gripped my wineglass, the stem cool against my palm, and forced a smile that felt like a crack in my face. The guests, a mix of Trevor's business friends and a few of my old neighbors, stared at their plates. Silence screamed louder than any insult. Trevor leaned back in his chair, smirking, his tie loosened like he'd already won. Lindsay, his wife, sat beside him, her diamond earrings catching the chandelier's light. She sipped her wine, her lips curling just enough to show she enjoyed the show. My chest burned, but I kept my voice steady. "You done?" I asked, low, almost a growl. He laughed, sharp and mean. "Done? Dad, I'm just getting started. You sit there, acting like you're some saint, but what do you got? This?" He waved a hand at the restaurant, at the half-eaten cake with "Happy 62nd" scrawled in icing. "You're a nobody. Always were." The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Not yet. I thought of the deed to the house, $2 million, my life savings, meant for him and Lindsay. It was supposed to be my gift, my way of giving Trevor the life I never had. Now, that deed felt like a stone in my pocket, heavy and useless. Lindsay leaned forward, her voice smooth as silk. "Frank, we don't need your approval. We've earned our place. You." She paused, her eyes flicking over me like I was a stain on her dress. "You're just, here." I set my glass down. The clink echoed. "I was going to give you something tonight," I said, my voice calm, though my pulse hammered. "A house. Paid in full. But after this?" I looked at Trevor, then Lindsay. "Forget it." The room froze. A woman at the next table gasped. Trevor's face twisted, his cheeks flushing red. "You're lying," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Wine sloshed from a glass, staining the white tablecloth like blood. "You? A house? You're too cheap to buy a new car." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was in my eyes, and he saw it. His rage boiled over, and he stood, knocking his chair back. "You're pathetic, Dad. Always playing the victim. I'm done with you." Lindsay grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. "Let's go, Trev. He's not worth it." She shot me a look, cold, dismissive, like I was garbage left on the curb. They stormed toward the door, Trevor's shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The door slammed behind them, the sound sharp as a gunshot. The guests muttered, avoiding my gaze. The waiter hovered, unsure, then started clearing plates. The table was a mess, crumpled napkins, half-eaten food, and that damn cake no one touched. I sat there, alone, the tick of the restaurant's clock drilling into my skull. 62 years, and this was my reward. A son who spat in my face, a daughter-in-law who saw me as a relic. I paid the bill, my hand steady despite the storm inside. The night air hit me as I stepped outside, cool and sharp. I didn't go home. Not yet. I walked, the city lights blurring as my mind churned. Trevor's words replayed, each one a cut deeper than the last. But something else stirred, a memory, faint but vivid, of a promise I made long ago. A promise to myself. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses on your chest. I sat in the living room, the only light from a lamp that flickered when the wind rattled the windows. In my lap was the family album, its leather cover worn from years of handling. I opened it, and there we were, me, Ellen, and Trevor, smiling at some long-gone picnic. His tiny hand clutched a balloon, his grin wide enough to break your heart. I traced the photo, my thumb smudging the edge. Where had that boy gone? My mind slipped back, unbidden, to the day I sold my old Honda. It was a beat-up thing, but it ran, and I loved it. Trevor was 18, accepted into a college I couldn't afford. I stood in the driveway, watching the buyer drive it away, the cash in my pocket feeling like a betrayal. That money paid for Trevor's first semester. He hugged me that night, his voice thick with promise. "I'll make you proud, Dad. I'll pay you back." I believed him. God, I believed him. I flipped a page. Another photo, Trevor at graduation, his cap tilted, his smile cocky. I'd worked double shifts at the firm, crunching numbers until my eyes burned, to cover his tuition. When his first business flopped, a tech startup he swore would change the world, I bailed him out. Wired him 50 grand without a second thought. He called me his hero then. Said he'd never forget it. The album felt heavier now. I turned another page, and there was Ellen's funeral. Trevor stood apart, checking his phone while I shook hands with mourners. He didn't stay long. "Got a meeting, Dad," he mumbled, and left me in that empty church. I hadn't cried that day. I didn't know how. The silence in the house grew louder, broken only by the creak of the floorboards. I closed the album, my fingers lingering on the cover. All those years, I told myself it was worth it. Every late night, every missed vacation, every dream I shelved, they were for him. For Trevor. And what did I get? A son who called me a failure in front of a room full of strangers. My gaze drifted to the wall, to the clock Ellen loved. Its ticking was relentless, each second a reminder of time I couldn't get back. I stood, the album sliding to the couch. Enough. I'd spent too long waiting for Trevor to be the son I raised. He wasn't that boy anymore. Maybe he never was. I crossed the room to my desk, the floor cold under my socks. My laptop sat there, its screen dark. I opened it, the blue light harsh against the dim room. My hands hovered over the keys. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to sit in this silence anymore. Not tonight. Not ever again. The laptop's glow lit my face, casting shadows on the walls of my study. The clock on the shelf ticked, steady as a heartbeat, urging me forward. I typed Trevor's name into the search bar, my fingers deliberate. Articles popped up, his name tied to a string of business deals, each shakier than the last. One headline caught my eye: "Local entrepreneur faces scrutiny over unpaid debts." I leaned closer, a grim smile tugging at my lips. So, Trevor was in trouble. Good. I scrolled, piecing together the mess he'd made. His latest venture, some fintech startup, was bleeding money. Investors were pulling out. I remembered him bragging about it last year, all swagger and promises of going big. I'd warned him it sounded shaky, but he'd laughed me off. Called me out of touch. Now, here was proof: he'd overplayed his hand. My mind flicked back to a moment 2 years ago. Trevor, over dinner, boasting about a game-changing deal. I'd asked questions, simple ones, about cash flow, contracts. He'd snapped, told me to stick to my boring spreadsheets. I'd let it go. I always let it go. Not anymore. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jack, an old friend from my days as a financial consultant. He picked up on the second ring, his voice gravelly but warm. "Frank? Hell, it's late. You okay?" "I need a favor," I said, keeping my tone even. Trevor's business. I want details. Off the record. Jack paused, then chuckled. Your kid's been playing with fire, hasn't he? I've heard whispers. Give me a day, I'll dig up what I can. He's not my kid anymore, I said, the words sharper than I meant. Jack didn't push. He promised to call tomorrow and hung up. I set the phone down, my pulse steady for the first time in hours. I pulled a notepad from the drawer, the paper crisp under my pen. I wrote, Trevor, debts. Bad deals. Then, Lindsay, image, social media. She was an influencer, her life a curated lie on Instagram. One crack in that facade, and she'd crumble. I'd seen her type before, people who lived for likes, not truth. Her weakness was as clear as Trevor's. The pen scratched as I jotted ideas. Quiet moves, nothing flashy. I wasn't some cartoon villain. This was about justice, about showing them I wasn't the nobody they thought. I'd spent decades building a life, a fortune, while they squandered theirs. They'd underestimated me. That was their mistake. I stood, crossing to the study's door. I closed it, the click solid, final. The room felt different now, like a war room instead of a refuge. The clock ticked on, but it didn't bother me anymore. It was counting down to something new. I sat back at the desk, my eyes on the screen. A new article loaded, a photo of Trevor shaking hands with some investor, his smile all teeth. I clicked it, and there it was, the first thread to pull. The library's reading room smelled of old paper and dust, the kind of scent that clings to your clothes. I sat at a corner table, surrounded by stacks of financial journals, their pages yellowed and crisp. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a nudge to keep digging. My laptop hummed softly, open to a database of business filings. Trevor's name glared back at me from the screen, tied to a sinking ship of a company. I jotted a note, over-leveraged. Investors fleeing. My pen, its grip worn smooth, scratched against the paper. I'd spent decades analyzing numbers, spotting cracks in deals others missed. That skill, dormant since retirement, woke up now. Trevor's business was a house of cards, big promises, no substance. I found an article buried in a trade journal, detailing a shady loan he'd taken to prop up his startup. The terms were predatory, the kind that bury you. I smiled, thin and sharp. He'd always been reckless, but this was a gift. My mind flicked to a dinner last spring. Trevor, glass in hand, bragging about a bulletproof deal. I'd asked about the lender, and he'd snapped, told me to mind my own business. I should have pushed harder. Instead, I'd paid for his wine. Never again. I pulled out my phone and called Jack. He answered, his voice low, like he was in a meeting. Frank, you're obsessive, he said, half joking. What now? Tell me about Trevor's loan, I said. The one from that offshore outfit. Jack sighed. It's a mess. High interest, tied to some sketchy firm. He's missed payments. Word is, they're circling. And there's talk of an ethics probe, something about fudged numbers. He paused. You sure you want to go down this road? I'm sure, I said, my tone flat. Jack promised more details and hung up. I leaned back, the chair creaking. An ethics probe. That could ruin him. The library was quiet, save for the rustle of pages and the hum of a fluorescent light. I crossed to the copier, feeding it an article about Trevor's deal. The machine whirred, spitting out pages that felt like ammunition. Back at my table, I sifted through Lindsay's world next. Her Instagram was a shrine to perfection, designer bags, curated brunches, sponsored posts. But the comments told another story, brands dropping her, whispers of inflated follower counts. One scandal, and her empire would crack. I stacked the documents, their edges uneven, and slid them into a folder. The clock read 3:17 p.m. Time was moving, and so was I. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the library's glass doors. I stepped through them, the folder under my arm, and headed to a cafe down the street. My next move was close, so close I could feel it. The cafe's corner booth was dim, the kind of spot where no one looks twice. My laptop screen glowed, a VPN masking my tracks. The air smelled of burnt coffee and pastries gone stale. I typed carefully, crafting an email to one of Trevor's investors, a man named Hargrove, known for cutting losses fast. The subject line was simple: concerns about your investment. Attached were scanned copies of the loan agreement and that damning article. No signature, no trace. Just facts. I hovered over the send button, my finger steady. This was it, the first cut. I thought of Trevor's smirk at my birthday, his voice calling my life wasted. He'd laughed then. Let's see him laugh now. I clicked. The email vanished into the ether, a silent arrow aimed at his heart. My mind drifted to a moment years back, Trevor crowing about his genius deals. I'd warned him about shady partners, but he'd brushed me off. You're stuck in the past, Dad, he'd said. Stuck. Maybe I was. But I knew how to play clean and quiet, skills he never learned. My phone buzzed, snapping me back. Trevor's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice, then answered, my voice calm. What? You bastard, he hissed, his words slurring with rage. You sent that email, didn't you? Hargrove just pulled out. My deal's tanking. I leaned back, the booth's vinyl creaking. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, each word measured. Sounds like your mess caught up with you. Don't play dumb, he shouted. I heard a crash, something glass, maybe a bottle. You're trying to ruin me. You're doing that yourself, I said, and hung up. My pulse was steady, my hands cool. I checked my inbox. A reply from Hargrove's assistant: Mr. Hargrove is reviewing the materials and has paused all commitments. Perfect. The cafe's clock ticked, its hands creeping toward evening. Trevor's threat echoed, but it was empty. He was scrambling, and I was just starting. Lindsay was next. Her sponsors wouldn't like what I'd found about her authentic brand. I closed my laptop, the screen's light fading. The door jingled as I stepped outside, a small recorder in my pocket, its weight a promise of more to come. The knock on my door was sharp, like a hammer on steel. I knew who it was before I opened it. My hand brushed the recorder in my pocket, its button already pressed. The living room was dark, save for a flickering lamp that cast long shadows on the walls. I opened the door, and there they were, Trevor, his face red and twisted, and Lindsay, her eyes cold as frost. The scent of her perfume, sharp and floral, hit me like an insult. You've gone too far, Trevor spat, pushing past me. His shoes scuffed the hardwood. Lindsay followed, her heels clicking, her purse clutched like a shield. I closed the door, the click loud in the tense air. Sit, I said, gesturing to the couch. They didn't. Trevor paced, his fists clenched, while Lindsay stood rigid, her lips a thin line. You tanked my deal, Trevor said, his voice low, dangerous. Hargrove's gone, and now the bank's calling. You owe me, Dad. Fix this. I crossed my arms, my face a mask. Oh, you. After what you said. You called me nothing. Lindsay stepped forward, her voice smooth, practiced. Frank, let's be reasonable. We're family. You don't want to hurt Trevor's future, do you? Her smile was fake, her eyes calculating. I saw right through her. Family? I said, my tone ice. Family doesn't humiliate each other in front of strangers. Trevor slammed a hand on the wall, the sound sharp. Enough games. Give me the money to cover the loan, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a selfish old man you are. I didn't flinch. The recorder hummed silently, catching every word. "You're not getting a dime," I said. "You made your choices." Lindsay's mask slipped, her voice sharp. "You're pathetic, Frank. Hoarding your money while we struggle. You're no father." She turned to Trevor. "Let's go. He's useless." Trevor glared, his breath heavy. "This isn't over. I'll bury you." He stormed to the door, Lindsay trailing him. The door slammed, the sound echoing in the quiet house. The clock ticked, steady, relentless. I pulled the recorder out, its red light steady. I played it back, their voices clear, Trevor's threats, Lindsay's venom. My lips curved, not quite a smile. This was gold. I sat at my desk, the recorder beside my laptop. The screen woke with a soft glow, and I opened a new file. Trevor and Lindsay thought they could bully me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The lawyer's office was cramped, the air thick with the scent of ink and old coffee. Papers teetered in stacks on the desk, and a window AC unit rattled like it was on its last legs. I slid a USB drive across to Richard, my old friend and occasional legal counsel. His gray eyebrows lifted as he plugged it into his laptop. The clock on his wall ticked, each second a reminder that time was my ally now. I leaned back in the creaky chair, my notebook open, its pages filled with precise, inked steps. Richard played the recording, Trevor's threats, Lindsay's venom. His frown deepened with every word. "This is dynamite, Frank," he said, pausing the audio. "But dangerous. You sure you want to play this game?" "I'm not playing," I said, my voice low, steady. "They crossed a line. I'm just evening the score." He nodded, rubbing his chin. "All right. We can use this, but no fingerprints. Anonymous leaks, third parties. You're too close to this." He jotted a note, his pen scratching. "What's the endgame?" I didn't answer. Not fully. My plan was a mosaic, pieces falling into place, the recording to discredit Lindsay, pressure on Trevor's creditors to tighten the noose. I'd spent years untangling financial knots for clients, now, I'd unravel my son's life. "Just make sure it's airtight," I said. Back home, the house was silent, save for the clock in the hall. Its ticking felt like a pulse, steady and sure. I sat at my desk, the notebook open. Step 1, alert Trevor's creditors about his missed payments, using public records to nudge them into action. Step 2, leak Lindsay's recording to a rival influencer, someone hungry enough to expose her. Each line in my notebook was a brick in the wall I was building, one that would box them in. I thought of Trevor's birthday toast, his smug grin as he called me worthless. The memory stung, but it fueled me too. I'd given him everything, my savings, my time, my dreams. And Lindsay, with her polished cruelty, had egged him on. They thought I was weak, a relic. They'd learn how wrong they were. Richard called later, confirming the first move was ready. "The creditor letters drafted," he said. "No trace to you. Send it tomorrow, and they'll be on Trevor like vultures." I thanked him and hung up, my pulse calm. The envelope sat on my desk, addressed to a loan officer who'd never know my name. I picked it up, its weight solid, final. Tomorrow, the first domino would fall. The morning sun filtered through my kitchen blinds, painting stripes on the table. I sipped coffee, its bitterness sharp, and unfolded the newspaper. The headline screamed, "Local entrepreneur faces financial ruin." Trevor's name in bold, his photo grainy but unmistakable, head down, dodging cameras outside his office. I set the mug down, a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. The clock ticked, each sound a nail in his coffin. I'd mailed the letter to Trevor's creditors 2 days ago, a carefully worded tip about his unpaid debts. Public records, nothing traceable. They'd moved fast, demanding immediate repayment. Jack called as I scanned the article, his voice grim. It's a bloodbath, Frank. Trevor's office is a ghost town. Creditors froze his accounts. He's done. Good, I said, flipping the page. What else? Jack hesitated. He's fighting with Lindsay. I heard them at a bar last night. She was screaming about her brand, how he's dragging her down. He chuckled darkly. They're cracking. I remembered Trevor at 25, eyes bright, promising to build an empire. I'd believed him, poured money into his first venture. When it tanked, he blamed everyone but himself. You're too cautious, Dad, he'd said. Cautious. That caution was my weapon now. The article detailed Trevor's fall, investors bailing, contracts cancelled, a lawsuit looming. I leaned back, the chair creaking. Every word was a brick I'd laid, every failure a step closer to justice. Jack's voice cut through my thoughts. You didn't hear this from me, but Trevor's begging for a bailout. No one's biting. Let him beg, I said, and hung up. I opened my laptop, the screen waking with a soft glow. Social media buzzed with Trevor's name, mocking memes, angry comments from former partners. He was unraveling, and I was watching from the sidelines, untouched. But Lindsay was still standing, her Instagram a facade of calm. That wouldn't last. I thought of the recording, her voice dripping with contempt. One move, and her sponsors would scatter. I clicked to a rival influencer's profile, someone with a grudge and a big audience. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to strike. The living room was dark, the only light from my laptop screen. I'd sent the recording to a blogger named Kaylee, a rival who'd clashed with Lindsay online. The email was anonymous, the file untraceable. Now, I scrolled through Lindsay's Instagram, her latest post a desperate plea, ignore the lies. I'm still your girl. The comments were brutal, fans turning, sponsors silent. Her phone, I imagined, was dark, its screen a mirror of her fading influence. The clock on the mantel ticked, counting down her reign. Kaylee had moved fast. She'd posted the recording last night, Lindsay's voice clear, he's useless, pathetic. The clip spread like fire, racking up views. Brands dropped Lindsay within hours, their logos vanishing from her profile. I leaned back, the couch creaking, and let a small smile form. She'd called me invisible at a party once, her laugh sharp as glass. Invisible. Not anymore. I thought of that night, her standing by Trevor, both of them mocking me in front of their friends. I'd swallowed the hurt, gone home, sat in this same room. Now, the silence felt different, powerful, like the calm before a storm. I refreshed the page. A new post from Lindsay, a shaky video, this is a misunderstanding. I'm not that person. Her mascara was smudged, her voice thin. The comments tore her apart. Jack called, his tone gleeful. Lindsay's done, Frank. No sponsors, no invites. She's radioactive. He paused. You're playing a hell of a game. No game, I said, my voice even. Just consequences. I hung up, my eyes on the screen. A news site ran a story, influencers fall shocks Chicago elite. Lindsay's photo, her smile forced, stared back. I closed the laptop, the click sharp in the quiet house. I stood, stretching, and glanced at the clock. Late, but I wasn't tired. Trevor and Lindsay were cornered, their lives crumbling under the weight of their own greed. I'd planned every step, and it was working. But I wasn't done. Not yet. A knock at the door broke the silence, hard and urgent. My pulse quickened, but I didn't flinch. I knew who it was. I crossed the room, my step steady, and reached for the handle. The knock came again, harder, rattling the doorframe. I stood in the dim hallway, the clock on the wall ticking like a metronome. My hand rested on the knob, steady, as I opened the door. Trevor and Lindsay stood there, soaked from the rain, their faces drawn and desperate. Trevor's shirt clung to him, wrinkled, the collar askew. Lindsay's makeup streaked down her cheeks, her eyes red and hollow. The scent of wet asphalt followed them, sharp against the warmth of my house. "Dad," Trevor started, his voice cracking. "We're sorry. We were wrong. Please." He stepped forward, his shoes squelching. Lindsay clutched her purse, her knuckles white. "You've got to help us," she said, her tone soft, almost pleading, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of calculation. I didn't move. The memory of Trevor's toast burned in my mind, his smirk, his words, "Your life's a waste." I saw Lindsay's cold smile, her dismissal of me as nothing. Now, here they were, broken, begging. "Help you?" I said, my voice low, even. "After what you did?" Trevor's face twisted. "We lost everything. The business, the sponsors, everything's gone." His hands shook, and he ran one through his wet hair. "You did this, didn't you? But I'm your son. You can't just destroy me." Lindsay touched his arm, her voice smoother. "Frank, we're family. You're better than this. Let's fix it together." Her words were honey, but they rang hollow, like a script she'd rehearsed. I stepped back, my gaze hard. The clock's ticking filled the silence. "You made your choices," I said. "You spat on everything I gave you. Family? You don't know the meaning of it." Trevor lunged forward, his voice rising. "You're heartless. You ruined us." I held up a hand, stopping him cold. Lindsay grabbed his sleeve, her nails digging in, but her eyes stayed on me, searching for a crack. She found none. "Get out," I said, each word deliberate. "You're not welcome here." Trevor's jaw dropped, his breath ragged. Lindsay's face hardened, her mask slipping. "You'll regret this, Frank," she hissed, but her voice trembled. I opened the door wider, the rain's patter loud against the porch. They hesitated, then turned, Trevor muttering under his breath. The door closed with a heavy thud, locking them out. The silence that followed was thick, unbroken except for the clock's steady rhythm. I walked to the living room, my steps slow. On the mantel sat a framed photo of Emily, her smile soft, timeless. I touched the glass, my fingers lingering. "You'd have hated this, Em," I murmured. "But it's done." The weight of the night settled, but it wasn't heavy. It was final. The sun blazed over the community center, its lawn dotted with balloons and banners. A crowd milled about, their chatter warm, excited. I stood at a podium, the microphone cool in my hand, a bronze plaque gleaming behind me, Emily Greenwood Foundation. The air smelled of fresh grass and hope. The clock tower nearby ticked, its sound faint but present, a reminder of time moving forward. I cleared my throat, the crowd quieting. "This foundation," I said, my voice steady, "is for families who need a hand up. For kids who deserve a chance. It's Emily's dream, and today, it's real." Applause erupted, hands clapping, faces smiling. I scanned the crowd, neighbors, strangers, a few old colleagues. No Trevor. No Lindsay. Just people who believed in this. Emily's face flashed in my mind, her laugh bright as we planned a future of giving back. We'd never gotten there together, but I was here now, honoring her. My chest tightened, but I pushed through, shaking hands as people approached. A young mother thanked me, her son clutching a scholarship letter. "This changes everything," she said, her eyes shining. I nodded, words caught in my throat. An organizer, a wiry man named Paul, leaned in as the crowd thinned. "Heard your son's in rough shape," he whispered. "Skip town, they say." I shrugged, my face neutral. "That's his story, not mine." Paul nodded, letting it drop. "The rumors didn't matter. Trevor and Lindsay were shadows now, their lives a cautionary tale. The ceremony ended, and I walked to my car, the sun warm on my back. The foundation was funded, millions from my savings, built over decades of quiet discipline. I'd never flaunted it, never needed to. Now, it was Emily's legacy, not just mine. The thought steadied me, like a hand on my shoulder. I reached my car, pausing at the mailbox nearby. A single envelope waited, the handwriting unmistakably Trevor's. My fingers brushed it, the paper rough. I slipped it into my pocket, unopened. The clock tower chimed, its notes carrying on the breeze. I wasn't ready to read his words, not yet. Maybe not ever. The memorial garden was quiet, the stone marker for Emily glowing in the fading light. I sat on a bench, the air cool, carrying the faint scent of smoke. In my hand was Trevor's letter, its edges creased from my grip. I'd read it once, in the car, his words a jumble of excuses and pleas, meet me, Dad. I can fix this. I shook my head, the paper trembling slightly. Fix what? The years of disdain. The betrayal. There was nothing left to mend. I struck a match, the flame small but fierce. The letter caught fast, curling into ash that drifted to the ground. The fire felt right, cleansing, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. The clock on my wrist ticked, its rhythm a quiet promise of days ahead. I thought of Emily, her dream of seeing Italy, cobblestone streets, warm cafes. We'd planned it together, but life got in the way. Now, I'd go for both of us. Earlier, I'd called a travel agent, my voice firm. One ticket to Rome, I said. Next month. The agent chirped about itineraries, but I barely listened. My mind was already there, walking through history, free. The thought brought a smile, small but real. I stood, brushing ash from my hands, and approached the memorial. The stone was cold under my fingers, Emily's name carved deep. I did it, Em, I whispered. I'm free. The words hung in the air, soft against the silence. Trevor and Lindsay were gone, their lives a distant echo. I didn't need to know where they were or what they'd do. They'd built their ruin, I'd built my peace. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and pink. I walked to my car, the gravel crunching underfoot. In my mind, Rome waited, its bustle, its warmth, its promise of a life unburdened. The clock ticked on, each second a step towards something new. I slid into the driver's seat, the engine humming to life, and drove into the dusk, the road ahead wide open. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.